As 2020 draws to a close, the cryptocurrency space is in an exciting place. After a number of positive pieces of news, including major investments, new purchasing gateways, and high demand, Bitcoin is closer to the 20K mark than it has ever been. Additionally, beyond Bitcoin, crypto markets in general are at the center of more attention than ever before. As a result, the DeFi ecosystem is burgeoning. Ethereum is making progress toward the launch of ETH 2.0, and if things continue along this trajectory, 2021 could be a very good year for cryptocurrency. Recently, Finance Magnates sat down with Simon Peters, market analyst at eToro, to discuss recent market movements in the cryptocurrency space, as well as what the most important trends and moments of 2020 have been so far for cryptocurrency. I'm Rachel McIntosh, and this is FMTV. Simon, first of all, I want to thank you once again for coming on the show. It's such a pleasure to meet you and finally get a chance to talk to you.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, definitely. So for people who might not know who you are, can you just talk a little bit about yourself, the work that you do? What's your story?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a market analyst here at eToro. I cover majority crypto, as no doubt you've seen. For those that haven't heard about eToro, we're a global investment platform, over 16 million registered users worldwide, where people can come to the platform, buy stocks, crypto assets, trade CFDs, also copy others if you're perhaps new to the market or not too sure what to invest in. I also look after some of our high equity clients here in the UK region, so those being what we term as platinum plus and diamond. So I do have the benefit, I suppose, of hearing the voice of the people on the platform and really understanding what the sentiment is, especially amongst crypto and other assets. So it's good to always have that feedback and be in touch with clients on the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to ask you about that a little bit later. But first, I kind of want to just touch on what your approach is as an analyst. So there, as we know, there's a lot of different market analysts out there. All of them have their own sort of approach to what they do. What is your approach when it comes to analyzing crypto?
Yeah, sure. I try to keep things as simple as possible. There is a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of technical analysis strategies, shall we say. Because I'm more long term, I tend just to look at the bigger picture and the higher time frames as you may have heard the term. So looking at rather than the price movements intraday, just try to get an idea of the wider picture, and also on top of that, just to really bring into the fundamentals as well in terms of what's actually happening in the crypto space and why we are seeing these price movements happening, and in turn what that can mean for the future as well. So really just studying the macros as well as what's happening on each blockchain or token specifically.
Okay, so if Bitcoin isn't always maybe the biggest part of the cryptocurrency news cycle, it definitely has been within the last couple of weeks because of this big move that we've seen.
Yeah,
almost to 20K. Not quite there. It's just
well, it depends on where you're looking, to be honest.
That's true. That's true.
Changed. Yes, some exchanges did go above 20K, others didn't. But hopefully, in a few weeks or so, the overall consensus will be that we've broken 20K back.
Yeah.
It's dependent. You've seen it.
Yeah, exactly. So talk to me a little bit about these trends that you're seeing, these fundamental things that are driving Bitcoin right now. What are you seeing?
Well, obviously the price increase that we've seen have been pretty astonishing, to say the least. But I think it stems from, I think what to maybe indirectly, COVID. I think has been a big factor for markets. And what I mean by that is where we did see the crash in March. There was a big sell-off in that week. Was where we learned about economies, especially in the US, going into lockdown, and we saw the markets tank. Now that we've got a better idea in terms of what governments and central banks are doing in terms of stimulus to prop up these economies globally, I think the Bitcoin as an inflation hedge, that particular argument has grown strength to strength since then. And we've seen not just institutional investors or retail investors gamble, but listed companies actually buy Bitcoin for this purpose as well. So I think that's been a big driving force from a macro point of view. But also in that time as well, we've had there's been PayPal, for example, is a big piece of news. I feel that they've opened up the crypto to their customer base. 350 odd million registered users that they have can now buy, sell, hold crypto. So I think it's been pretty positive for the space as a whole.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, as you said, kind of a combination of different things that are making this happen. But at the same time, I have to ask, a month ago we were around 13, 14K. This big last push has been kind of fast. I mean, does that raise any alarm bells for you in terms of, of course, corrections are always a part of the move forward, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the move is warranted to some degree. What we are seeing is a growing trend where the amount of Bitcoin in circulation or that's been held on exchange wallets is decreasing as the demand is increasing. So it does warrant a price increase that we have seen. But yeah, you mentioned corrections, and when you do see a price increase that fast, you're always anticipating a period of consolidation or a correction. Yeah, so I think that's on the cards. But I think the overall trend, given what we're seeing with an increasing hodling mentality, shall we say, amongst investors, with an increase in overall demand, I think that just spells good news for the price and crypto overall going forward, anyways, in the years to come.
Yeah, definitely. So I kind of want to ask a little bit. I want to retrace a little bit myself and ask about you and how you kind of got involved in this whole space, and in Bitcoin in particular. It sounds like, from an analytical point of view, you certainly have kind of a bullish look at Bitcoin. But was that always the case? Did you come to be an analyst because of an interest in Bitcoin?
So my story about eToro. So before, I've been involved in the financial markets for a number of years now. So I worked at previous brokers and platforms. When I got into eToro was just before the start of the 2017 crypto wave.
Okay.
At a time when I joined, actually, it was more about Ethereum. I think Ethereum at the time was about $20.
Yeah.
And we were seeing big price increase, and pretty much everyone I was speaking to in terms of a new client coming on board to eToro was just to get some exposure to Ethereum, because I think we're one of the few places where you could get quick exposure, by just going from dollars to Ethereum in this case. As we saw the price increase, and then that sort of transitioned over to Bitcoin, and then there's a massive excitement. Bitcoin went to all-time highs then. Then we saw the big ICO phase back again on Ethereum, XRP as well, going to $3.50. So yeah, I joined at that time when naturally there was a lot of excitement purely down to the price increases. But also, I think when you start to really look into crypto in more detail in terms of not necessarily just the price increase, but what actually does it mean and what benefits does it bring to society going forward, I think that's where the real interest lies. And when you hear about Bitcoin being the future of money, naturally you want to look at the history of money and how we've actually got to the state where we are. And I think the more you look at the history of money, how we've gone from exchange and barter to gold coins to dollars back to gold, and then to the fiat system which we currently have. Bitcoin is the natural transition to the new monetary, the new money. So I think the more you look at it in that way as well, the greater the interest grows, and that's where I sort of found my niche, I suppose, as being an analyst here at eToro and covering crypto and find that coverage.
Okay, so when you say that you see Bitcoin as the new money, like what does that look like on a practical level? Let's say 20 years from now, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea about Bitcoin is about being peer-to-peer, having central authority. I think the financial crisis highlighted that, and if we do see another financial crisis again, it could highlight it further and provide that catalyst almost for people to say, hey, look, maybe there's an alternative I need to be able to do business, to be able to do commerce without having to go through a central authority. So I think if we do, as bad as it sounds, see a negative event like that, it could be positive for Bitcoin and crypto going forward.
Do you see that happening? Do you foresee another financial crisis on the horizon?
I mean, it could happen if you look at stock markets. The amount of liquidity that's being pumped into the system at the moment, and it's just you see stock prices going higher and higher, and some stocks are even more volatile than Bitcoin this year, which is interesting to see.
It's crazy, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, how high can they keep going? You'd have to ask yourself the question: could we see a big correction? Whether it will turn into a full blown financial crisis, we'll have to unfortunately wait and see. But if we do get to that situation where there's an inability to restrictions on withdrawing cash, withdrawing money, then that could present an opportunity for crypto where you can freely move your money around. No one can tell you what to do with it, and there's no control. It's just you and the network. That's it.
Yeah. Do you think Bitcoin is going to be like the thing? Is it going to kind of continue in this role that it currently has as portfolio optimizer, hedge against the sort of digital gold narrative, or will it move to a digital cash narrative?
I think at a point in time, years to come, yes, it will. But at the moment, it seems to be this store of value, inflation hedge, digital gold. That seems to be what's going for it. And I think especially in times like now where we are seeing central bank intervention in traditional markets, increasing monetary supply, we are, there's more advocates in support of Bitcoin for those reasons. I think as in time, where the volatility perhaps decreases and things stabilize, then they may be seen more as a currency.
Right, definitely. So, and I also want to ask you, earlier you said that, crypto and Bitcoin could bring benefits to society, and we've kind of been talking around that a bit, but can you talk specifically about what you see the benefits to society being from crypto?
Yeah, I mean, just having the freedom, I suppose, but there's also an ongoing argument with central bank digital currencies, and saying if you do have a central bank digital currency, then it sort of negates the need for having a currency like Bitcoin, which is in some ways you could argue that, but there are advantages to CBDCs where payments can be done instantly, like they can on Bitcoin. However, you'd argue that even though it's inspired from a crypto asset like Bitcoin, where it's decentralized, these CBDCs could be highly centralized. And I think if people do lose trust in governments and the financial system, the monetary system going forward, then it may just prompt that transition to look for alternatives. And that's where I think the likes of Bitcoin, more than any other currency at this moment in time, have its benefits, because Bitcoin has the name, it's the brand, if that makes sense. People associate the crypto world with Bitcoin, vice versa. So I think that's what, even though some could argue it perhaps doesn't have the transaction speeds as some other networks, or there's issues around scalability. But I believe in time, there's a lot of smart people working on Bitcoin, especially people a lot smarter than me that are working on it. So I think in time that will come. But it has the name above anything else. It's the first cryptocurrency, and I think that ultimately is what's going to lead to its wider adoption going forward in the real long term.
Yeah, exactly. That it's like the OG cryptocurrency. Exactly. I love. Yeah. But speaking of CBDCs, this has kind of been a question that I've been asking, mulling around for the last year. There's a lot of talk about CBDCs nowadays. Like, it seems kind of more and more like it's going to happen. Do you think that it's likely that any of the things that Bitcoin provides in terms of its benefits, this like scarcity mechanism, peer-to-peer, do you think that anything like that will be engineered into CBDCs, or do you think that CBDCs are just going to be basically what we already have, except for it's digital?
Yeah, I think so. The latter, yeah. So in terms of scarcity, I don't think that's going to come into the equation with CBDCs. I might be proved wrong, but I think at this moment in time where we stand, probably not. I think it should be a replication of the system that we see at the moment onto somewhat digital already, but in a more digital way, shall we say. There are benefits, like I said, you can process transactions real time. I suppose with coronavirus especially highlighted the need, highlighted the inefficiencies in the current system, where certainly in the US, citizens struggle to get that $1,200 payment, the post offices and things like that, whereas a CBDC could provide that real time. But again, it comes to this question that what's the actual design of the CBDC going to be? Is it going to be decentralized, or more likely would it be a highly centralized system, which people may not really like, in all honesty?
Yeah,
because you can be excluded from the financial system at any point in time. At that point, and if it's controlled by someone and you're blacklisted, then what do you do?
Yeah, that's a really important question. What do you do? And there is this sort of possibility of this dystopian like control data and all of those kinds of things that CBDCs could possibly bring to our society. I mean, a lot of it already exists with, the way that we do use electronic money every day with credit and debit and all that kind of, stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I wanna ask you. I want to switch gears a little bit. So we're nearing the end of 2020. It's been a crazy year, pretty much in every regard. Also for Bitcoin and
Yeah.
for the cryptocurrency sphere in general. I kind of want to just ask you generally, what has your favorite moment or your favorite moments of the Bitcoin and crypto space this year been?
Favorite, well, of course, hitting the all-time high, but I think outside of Bitcoin, what we're seeing on Ethereum right now is quite exciting. That actually
Okay.
phase 2.0, yeah, so that's quite positive to see, and other projects such as Cardano moving forward as well. So there's a lot of developments happening in the space, but also from I think the bridges as well between the traditional world and the crypto world are starting to, there's more connectivity now, shall we say, and we are seeing more and more on ramps, and it is needed in order for the crypto ecosystem to grow overall. You need that those on ramps to enable that transition of wealth from the markets as we know them now to blockchain. So that's also positive to hear more news around that. Banks as well being more willing, shall we say, to provide services to crypto companies. Custody as well is improving. So yeah, it's all good for the space going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to dig in a little bit on this ETH 2.0
Yeah.
thing that's happening. So I'm sure most of the people who are listening to this podcast probably have some idea about what that is, but just can you give me the elevator pitch? What is ETH 2.0 and what's it going to do for Ethereum?
Yeah, so Ethereum currently is on a proof of work consensus mechanism, so it's heavily involved around miners, now transitioning to proof of stake, which will be based on validators. And where we are at the moment, we've just gone live with Ethereum 2.0, or the first phase, which is the beacon chain, essentially the backbone of the new network going forward. So that's where we are, and we'll then add to that with phase one sharding, and then hopefully integration of the current Ethereum blockchain into the new blockchain, and then 2.0 will be complete and rolled out, and could be a number of years now, but it's positive to always see the first step nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. So what does this sort of mean for Ethereum on a practical level? I know that, there's been a lot of talk about DeFi this year, also talk about, whether or not Ethereum can stand up to the weight of DeFi and all of the growth that's happening there. What does ETH 2.0 solve in terms of?
Yeah, it's more about scalability and cost of transactions, to be honest. Yeah, there are solutions on the blockchain as we know at the moment, layer 2 solutions, but this will enable more transactions, and there's also like question marks around gas fees as well.
Right.
We saw, given the explosion in DeFi this year, gas fees go to sort of astronomical levels, where on the new network it shouldn't be the case, and allow for scalability to happen, and more and more transactions to go through the network, and enable the current ecosystems to grow. So I think we've only really just at the tip of the iceberg with these DeFi. Certainly, I think we've only just getting started now.
Yeah. So DeFi is, a pretty big deal, and we've seen a lot of attention on the DeFi space. Yeah. We've seen a lot of attention on the space, particularly after the summer with all of these, token price explosions, which, have, as some people argue, are more or less meaningless in the grand scheme of things. But
yeah, I mean, there are similarities to the ICO wave we saw back in 2017. However, I think this time around there are some really good projects out there, and I think going forward they'll provide real value to the ecosystem as a whole going forward. So there are some.
Is there anything in particular that you're excited about?
I actually like Chainlink and what they're doing there in terms of, because smart contracts are only as good as their inputs. So having the ability to bring real world data onto blockchain or use them in smart contracts, I think is quite exciting. Well, not quite exciting, it's pretty exciting. So I'm interested to see how that particular project grows and gets integrated into the wider ecosystem as a whole. So that's one I'm keeping an eye on. It's actually one I have in my portfolio at the moment. It's good.
Oh, okay. Oh, good to know. Okay.
Yeah, no advice or anything.
Yeah. No advice. No advice.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah. So, but I want to ask you sort of like, so right now we're in this sort of baby stage of DeFi. There's a lot of money that's come into the DeFi space, but not necessarily a lot of users. There hasn't
Yeah.
totally. So what do you think is the next step in terms of getting people to actually use these services and platforms?
Um, I think a lot of it comes around to education. To be fair,
Okay.
DeFi is quite a niche area of the crypto market as a whole, and I think the wider audience are probably just getting grips to the idea of what cryptocurrency is and actually understanding Bitcoin. And there's millions and millions of people out there that still really don't have a full grasp of what it is. So I think in time it will come, and the likes of eToro, what we do, not just being the platform, but also a voice, if you like, in terms of education and helping people understand exactly what crypto is. So more companies and more people doing that, I think will be helpful for the space going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of going forward, so what do you think are the most important trends that are going to carry from this year into next year,
Yeah, I
in
think,
sort
of
of
course,
generally speaking?
yeah, certainly we'll DeFi, which we touched upon. I think that will
Mm.
continue to grow. But just switching back to Bitcoin and the sort of the wider macros, what's happening in traditional markets. I think if we do see, there's talk at the moment about a new fiscal stimulus package, and we do see, more liquidity coming into traditional markets, that could further the argument of Bitcoin being an inflation hedge, and where it may not be solely as much retail now and more institutional. I think that will be a trend. Certainly, that will be keeping an eye on institutional money coming in, not just from like big hedge funds or institutional private investors, but listed companies as well. We saw this year MicroStrategy and Square with their Bitcoin acquisitions. So I'll be interested to see if there's more companies that do the same in 2020 years beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. Simon, it's been so fascinating to talk with you. This hasn't been a super long conversation, but I feel like I've gotten so much information. Thank you for all the work that you do in this space. Before we go, do you have any announcements you'd like to share, or perhaps you can also share where our listeners can find out more about you?
Well, you can find me on eToro. I do have an account there. I actually have two accounts. One's for crypto and trading, and one's for copy trading as well. So
Great.
At the top of the podcast, and you do have the ability to copy other people on the platform. So that's something that I also do on that particular portfolio, is copy some of our other popular investors, as they're known. You can also find me on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. So if you want to message me there, then feel free to.
Okay, fabulous. Simon, thank you so much for your time.
No worries. Thanks, Rachel.
Yeah, sure. For news, events, and more podcasts like this one, check out financemagnates.com. I'm Rachel McIntosh. Thank you for listening.